YouTubers, today I wanted to go through a little bit of a how-to. When I was younger and I first started using makeup, I really started with the absolute basics, okay? So I started to wear my eyeliner, my mascara and my lip glosses. It wasn't for a few years before I started to experiment with eyeshadows, and I sort of got a bit more serious about that side of my cosmetics. Now when I did finally decide to go on a foray into eyeshadow, I started by using those little spongy applicators. Similar to this, with the sponge on the end. They're usually quite small in size, and you usually get them with a eyeshadow palette. Now I started off using those, but I soon found out that they weren't really doing the job. The spongy bits were a little bit flimsy and I wasn't so impressed with the way that they applied my eyeshadow. So I went out and I bought my very first brush set. It was a cheapie, obviously. But one thing that I wish I had have investigated or been told about is how to care for, how to store and how to clean my brushes. So today I just wanted to share some things that I've learnt over the years of makeup application and just show you guys exactly those three things. So to start with, I want to show you how I store my brushes. Now I've got them just here in my beautiful brush holder. Now this particular one is made of a very thick plastic, it's a resin, so you can see how solid it is. It doesn't scratch, which I really like. Because it's clear, it means I can see everything that I've got in there, and also there's no chance of it getting dirty. If I were to have a white brush holder, for example, that would really easily get covered in eyeshadow and all sorts of different products, whereas this one tends to stay really clean. So it has these two sections. I've actually divided my brushes up into two lots. I've got the larger brushes over here. That is my foundation brush, my blush brush, my powder brushes for bronzer, etc. That goes in this larger section. And this side, smaller section, I have all of my eye brushes. So I've got my angled brushes, my blending brushes, my little spongy applicator, my lip brush, and all of my other eyeshadow brushes in this side. Now this particular brush holder has a separate compartment here in the front. It's a bit smaller than the others, so I tend to keep my brush cleaner just fitting in that little section there. Obviously you can put whatever you want to or whatever you need to in that section down the bottom. So I purchased this one from Priceline. It was quite reasonable. I think it was under $30. As I said, there's plenty of benefits to having a clear, transparent resin brush holder. And if I were to go out and purchase another brush holder, it would be exactly like this one. So my collection is pretty standard. I don't really have a huge amount of brushes. I do have about 3 or 4 sets and just some random brushes here and there. One set in particular is my travel set, and I have a really lovely brush roll. It's quite small. That one's from Bella Pierre. So that opens up, you've got this flap here. I've got a few brushes in there that don't really get used on an everyday basis. If I were to go traveling, I would obviously remove the brushes from the brush holder and I'd pop them in here so they can be safely tucked away when I travel. The great thing about brush rolls is the fact that when you clasp them up, they're really quite thin. So you can see it's almost like the width of a small purse or a clutch, and they can be really easy to pop into your luggage and they safely stow away and don't take up too much room. At the same time, it also protects your brushes as well. Having this flap over the top means the bristles are always protected and they're not going to be pushed out of shape or damaged in any way. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is just how I wash my brushes, how I clean them. Now, when you are using a brush, it obviously makes contact with your skin. Every single makeup brush does. Now I want you to think about the state of your skin. Now if you have oily skin, you might have excess sebum, body oil that comes up on your skin, and when you're using a brush, the brush is actually going to pick up some of that sebum, some of that oil as you're applying your makeup. The same goes if you have dry skin. You might have flaky, scaly skin. You might have a couple of areas that get a little bit more flaky and a bit more dry and irritated. The same thing happens when you apply your makeup as well. Your brush is going to pick up those particles and those horrible bits of dead skin. So throughout the application process, your brush is picking up lots of nasty, and really you don't want to have that on your brush when you're applying your makeup. So once you've used it once, I recommend giving it a quick clean. I tend to wash my brushes straight after I use them in the morning. I set aside 5 minutes. It doesn't take very long if you just use a couple of brushes per day, which is what I do. What I do is I run them under some lukewarm water. I think it's important that it's not too hot, because if it is too hot, you're going to start to melt the glue, which helps to hold the bristles in place, and you might get shedding. So I turn on the tap, have it on lukewarm. I rinse the brushes to start with, just to get the most of the excess off there. The next thing I use is my brush cleaner. Now, this is a brush shampoo. It's one of my favorite products, and it's something that I discovered through another YouTuber on here. What it is I've actually used most of it, so you're not going to be able to see much if I open it up. But it is actually a solid puck of shampoo for your brushes. This particular one is scented in citrus scent. I find it really nice and refreshing. The other option you have is a lavender scent. I'll put the link up for the web store that I purchased this from. I believe it was around the $13 mark, so quite reasonable. What I do after I've wet my brush is I will open up my brush shampoo. I will swirl the brush around on the top of that solid shampoo. It will start to foam up just a little bit, and I will then place it under the water again and gently rub it around on my hand. So you don't want to be too forceful with it. You don't want to get shedding again, but you just want to really gently manipulate it so you remove all of the traces of makeup and all of the sebum and or dry skin. Now, when you first run the water over the brush, there's going to be product coming out. Now, that is completely normal. You want all of that foundation or eyeshadow to be running out of the brush, into the water, and then into the sink. What you're looking for is the water to slowly change colour. If you've used a foundation, it will be obviously your foundation's colour until it all runs out of the brush. Now, once that happens, you should have clear water. It's pretty easy to spot. Once you've finished cleaning the brush, I generally pat mine dry just with a towel, very gently. Then I find it very important to store the brushes upside down so they can dry. Now, if you were to store the brush right side up, you would have issues with water seeping into this little section here where the bristles are glued into the frame. That can cause shedding. Definitely store your brushes upside down until they're dried. Now, the synthetic brushes take a bit longer to dry than the natural hair ones. They take anywhere from a couple of hours onwards. It really depends on your climate and the weather at your place of residence. But I usually find maybe 6 hours should pass, and then I should be able to use my brushes comfortably. So you can see on my brush holder, all the ones that are upside down are the brushes that I used this morning and have subsequently washed. So they have a chance to dry naturally, and none of the glue will be impacted by that excess water. So that brings the video to an end. I hope it's been helpful for you guys. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for videos for me, please just enter them in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're enjoying my videos, and enter my giveaway. I will provide a link to that in the information bar. You're welcome to enter that if you haven't already. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye.